It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Welcome back to Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, here each and every day on LRN.FM from beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, where it's kind of chilly. It's a little bit chilly today, but I tell you what, I bet you it's not as chilly as where you're probably at. Man. Well, you know, here in the studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com, we have a special guest. I'm very proud to be able to introduce to you. It's John Lott. Now, John Lott is, he got his PhD in '84 from UCLA. He's done all kinds of writing and so on. He's like dozens and dozens of articles all over, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, USA Today, Chicago Tribune. I mean, he's been held positions of law and economics at Yale and Stanford and UCLA, Texas A&M, Rice. I mean, he's been had a position over at the American Enterprise Institute. I mean, the boy has some skills. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Obama's State of the Union speech from someone that may have a beat on what's really going on. Now, you probably remember in the late 90s, 97 I think it was, that more guns, less crime was, it shocked the political world. And just, let's just look at some numbers. You have more guns, the more liberalized you are in concealed carry, the more you have the good guys get to carry, guess what happens? Through deterrence or demise, the bad guys go away. That's just how it is. And we could spend some time on that, but I really want to focus on Obama's State of the Union speech. I got you there, John?
Yeah, good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
John, I tell you what my real concern is that we have presidents give State of the Unions over and over and over, and it's what comes out of it is government needs to do more instead of just getting out of the way. And I'll start off with the first thing he was talking about is you think he's saying something, okay, cool. He's going to go, we're going to stop subsidizing oil and then invest in whatever the heck it is that he wants to. And I'm just like, stop subsidizing oil and all this other stuff to take care of itself. So what do you think about oil subsidies and so on?
Well, a lot of the changes he's talking about would penalize investment in oil relative to other types of investments. And I guess my attitude is, to the extent that you're going to have taxes, you should treat everybody the same. It shouldn't be the government's decision to try to make certain types of investments more or less attractive than others. But that's pretty much been the president's modus operandi. You look at things like the so-called Small Businesses Jobs Bill that he passed last year. I mean, it was a lobbyist dream. You had over 2,000 pages of fine print detail about where you could invest to go and get a subsidy and where you couldn't invest. So, one bizarre thing they had in there is that if you're a farmer, if you invest in a building structure above a certain size that's used for 2 or more operations on the farm, you don't get any tax credit for it. But if it's only used for 1 operation, then you get this really huge tax credit. As far as I can see, it's basically a targeted subsidy only towards large farms. But, everything was like that. If you export certain products, you get a subsidy. If you export others, you don't get a tax credit. And
sounds like social and economic engineering. I'll give you an example. Part of the speech, he said, the next generation, we are going to make a goal of having 98% of the people have high-speed wireless. I don't know why that's a government thing. But so rural farmers and businesses can sell worldwide. And I'm going, that's what got me involved in politics and everything in the late 80s anyways. My father manufactured something, and long story. But I tell you this. When they started this S510 thing, they're going to regulate how we do food and so on. I go, don't sit there and lie to me that you're going to make the world available, and then you're going to have all these regulations on growing food. So I'm just, but I want to get something deeper instead of making this an Obama thing or a Democrat thing. It seems to me that there's he even talked about replacing No Child Left Behind with Race to the Top. And the difference is what? You still got the U.S. Department of Education. You still got whatever criteria. We're going to tweak it a little bit. We're going to change it. We're going to rename it. And I'm looking more for, is there a philosophical understanding that government just needs to get the flipping out of the way?
Right. I mean, I think one of the best features of our system originally was that it allowed competition between the states, that different places could try different ideas on education or something else, and if they made a mistake, they paid for it. People would leave their state and move someplace else. If they did a good job, they would attract businesses and people, and they'd grow and prosper, and others would copy them. What's happened, though, over the last 50 years across all sorts of administrations has been that the federal government wants one size fits all. It's not allowing the experimentation. If you want to do anything different than what the approved plan is, you have to go and get a waiver, and most of the time that's very difficult to go and get from the federal government. But I think we've lost a lot. We've lost a lot of the ability to go and see what works and what doesn't. And part of that has been, unions and others have pushed for a lot of these things.
Well, the unions are now asking and getting waivers on the health care bill. You
have some place like SEIU, the big public employees union, which is out there and saying, look, we've fought for this health care bill, but we just don't want it to apply to ourselves. And you look at something else today. We just found out that General Electric, which has been, a lot of people are working very closely with the Obama administration, they've been one company that's been waived from some of the new carbon dioxide regulations that are going to be imposed on everybody else. And so that's one big problem. When you have the government has so much power, it can reward its friends and punish its enemies just by determining who they give waivers to and who they don't.
Well, are you in a position to be able to argue for, the elimination of all of these subsidies, all this involvement, all of this one-size-fits-all homogenous from the top-down government thing anyway? I mean, from a lot of the publications that you are popular with and be appearing on a lot of the cable news and so on, I would imagine that there's a limit. There's a red line. You're not able to cross this line. We need government to do what we want them to do. And do you feel you're coming up against that?
Well, I mean, it's basically up to the courts. I mean, we had courts in the United States up until the late 1930s, which said, look, there's certain things that the federal government can't do. That's the reason why we have the Constitution. It was there to limit the federal government. The Commerce Clause was a prime example. The original point of the Commerce Clause was to go and say the federal government would eliminate trade barriers between the states because some states would want to protect their producers versus others. Now it's been twisted into something where they claim that everything you do affects interstate trade. So the original Wicker case involves some farmer in Kansas who didn't want to deal with the Department of Agriculture regulations on what he could grow or how much, but the government said, you have to obey this even if everything you grow is just for your own consumption.
Because they can. Because they can. We'll be right back here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, my very, very, very special guest, John Lott. We're going to be talking more about Obama's speech and what he had to say and what does it mean and where we are now, where we're going to be. Because it's coming. It's coming. We'll be right back.